pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Item 1B, approval of the agenda, items for discussion.
I move that the agenda for the June 23rd, 2025 special meeting be approved.
Support.
Okay, motion by Mr. Keller, support by Mr. Campbell. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Gogolewski?
Yes.
Mr. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
And I am a yes. Motion passes. Item 1C, approval of minutes, June 16, 2025.
I move that the minutes of the June 16, 2025 regular meeting be approved.
Support.
Okay, motion by Mr. Keller, supported by Mr. Campbell. Is there any discussion? All right, hearing none. Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Gogolewski?
Yes.
Mr. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Motion carries. Superintendent's report.
Just want to say thank you for those that are here today to interview for a board seat, and thank you for being interested in being a part of the Hartland Consolidated School District.
Thank you, Chuck. Renee, do you have any cards for call to the public? Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to item 2A, board candidate interviews. Before our candidates, before we start the interview process, I just wanted to hit a couple of highlights about the process that we'll use tonight. All of the candidates except the first, which I believe is Mr. Patilla to start, will be escorted to a conference room down the hall, and then you'll wait for your interview time. I believe, Renee, will you go down and get the next person when we're ready for the next one? Each board member will ask the candidates 1 to 2 questions. They'll be the same questions that we ask for each interview. And then after tonight's interviews, a special meeting has been scheduled for the board to vote on the appointee. That meeting is Tuesday, July 1st, right here at 6:30. I think that's everything. I think we can get started. Sure, if you want to. Welcome, Mr. Patilla. Thank you for participating tonight and for your interest in joining the board. Before we get started with the interview questions, I would just like to ask you to please confirm that you live in the school district, in Hartland School District, and that you are a registered voter.
Yes.
Awesome. All right, then, Mr. Keller, you've got the first question.
Good evening, Mr. Patilla. All right. Could you please describe your current or recent involvement with the Hartland School District?
Well, at the board, I've always been very involved with the school district as a whole since my kids. I've had my oldest graduated, 4 years ago. My middle daughter graduated a couple of years ago, and then I have a daughter that's will be a senior this coming year. So I've always been really involved. with their education, parent conferences, whatever, keeping up to date on what they were doing, but more so with the board just in the last couple of years, since COVID, I guess.
As a potential board candidate, please explain why you are seeking this seat now and describe what you see as your role if you are chosen as a Board of Education member.
The seat came up. I thought about running in the last election, and I kicked it around, and for a variety of reasons, some personal reasons, I decided not to do it. But now the opportunity came up to help out, and I can do it now. And yeah, so I decided to step up and do it. I think my role as a board member is just to represent all students. That's always been, ever since I've been involved with the board, like I say, since about COVID. It's just about treating all students the same. Every student, in my view, and I've said this many times in front of you guys, but in my view, every student is one of 5,000 students, not deserving of any better or any lesser treatment than anybody else. I mean, I see everybody, so as a board member, I'd be there for all students.
Can you tell us about a time when you had to support an unpopular decision, or describe a time when you took a principled stance that placed you in the minority?
Well, I served 5 years on the Kensington Valley Hockey Association Board of Directors in a variety of roles, VP, House Director, ACE Director. But there came a time, this is about, maybe 8, 9, 10 years ago now, USA Hockey, which is the national sanctioning body, was really pushing for cross-ice hockey for little kids, just a smaller ice surface and whatever. So I didn't, as a travel director, I didn't really see that as, there was a lot of people opposed to it as a one-size-fits-all. It was more, I felt, being on the board, that it was more, some kids it was good for, some kids, definitely kids at a lower skill level, but then for some kids it wasn't as desirable. So, but the board voted to go that way so I took on the role of designing the program to fit KV and to implement it there. In addition to that, I took it upon myself, because a lot of parents they didn't feel their kids were, they felt there's a lot of politics and their kids weren't given ample opportunity to participate at a higher level. So me and a couple other board members set up additional training, and we worked with the kids couple nights a week to try to bring their skill level up where they could get on a higher level team. So that was all part of that cross ice thing. Like I say, I didn't agree with it across the board, but for certain kids it was good. Sorry about that.
Excuse me, I'm going to actually use my mic here. If you were to be appointed, how would you help to build the team dynamic between the board and other areas of the school district, including administrators, teachers, staff, et cetera?
I think, well, I really like Mr. Keller's program, or I think Mr. Keller came up with it, with the program of each of you taking on a school and visiting that school. But I think that is a phenomenal idea. But I think it would work out good too to do it just to, all levels of the organization, whether it be, from the top to the bottom, just to maybe have off-sites or just open communication with, but I really like from the teacher's perspective. I mean, I like the program you guys have where you visit the school, and I think that's really good, and maybe we could do more of it.
Is there a recent board decision that you did not agree with? And if so, how would you have voted and why?
Yeah, this might not be popular with some of you, but no, the last board meeting, I think the supplementing the sheriff's department road patrol, to me, maybe it ends up there and maybe that's a good decision. I just think it should have been postponed. I would have voted no, let's negotiate with them a little more and put that money that we save, we could put into the kids, whatever, hire additional help for the kids I know a while back, I was in a meeting with Chuck, and one of his little meetings that he was having with parents, And there's a lady that stood up, her child was really struggling with reading, and there was no money in it to help that kid out. So I just think we could use that money. If we negotiated with them, we could use that money towards putting it into the kids' education, you know? So I would have voted no. In the end, I think it's probably a good idea. I just would have liked to see it postponed and, you know, try to negotiate with them. Another thing, can I bring up one more? Okay. One thing that's always bothered me coming to these board meetings, obviously I come to just about every meeting, but is things not being added to the agenda when they're brought up by a board member. So myself, if I was sitting on the board, you guys are all elected by the public. And if you guys think it's important enough to put on the agenda, I think it should be a no-brainer. And I think, I would guess, I don't have the stats, but I would guess 95% of the time it gets shot down, right? But I think if any one of you think it's important enough, it should be talked about, should be discussed. So that's one thing, as on the board, I would say, yeah, if you want to talk about it, let's do it, you know.
If you were appointed, what do you think the top 3 priorities of the board should be?
Top 3, I would say academic excellence. Not only academic excellence, but maintaining that. I know I sat on as many of you are aware, I went to the strategic planning. I was part of that committee, that offsite that we did. And I was kind of surprised. We didn't have a lot of time to dissect all the data, but at times we looked real good. And then a couple grades later, we're not so good, right? So I think one of the board's things is to, you know, get that excellence up there and to maintain it across all 12 years. But that, and I would say safety and retaining good teachers. I think the teachers, you know, yeah, I think it's important to retain good teachers. My kids have all went through, they happened to go to Creekside Elementary, and man, I can't say enough of, actually all the way up, but they didn't have any bad teachers. It was, I can't say enough about Creekside in particular, because that's elementary. I know my son initially, when he was in first grade or whatever, he had some speech, I can't even recall what the speech thing was, but I didn't recognize it, but they picked up on it. They had him in speech therapy for a year or whatever, straightened it out, he was good to go, you know, so it was something that I didn't even know, and they picked up on it, so I can't say enough about Creekside in particular, and I'm sure all the elementaries are good, you know.
In what ways do your online and other public actions support the image of the district?
I do very little online. I'm not a big, I use Marketplace, but I don't do a lot of Facebook. I guess but I do like to comment on, you know, if I see kids academically or sporting events, I'll put comments in there, hey, great job, well done, whatever. But, so I like to see that stuff, but I don't have a huge presence on social media. I just.
Okay. And Mr. Patella, please describe what you feel is the proper role that parents should play in shaping policy and curriculum for a school district in detail.
I think they should play the biggest role. I think they should be really involved in it. I know a lot of it obviously comes from the state level on mandatory stuff they have to teach, but I think they play a huge role. And in my view, the school district gets our kids from grade 5 through 12, and they get them 7 hours a day on loan to go there and be taught the basics. To me, you know, math, English, science, history, teach the basics, and I think the rest of the stuff should be left to the parents. So I think the parents should play a big role, huge role. I guess I would say the biggest role in their kids' education. I realize some parents aren't as involved, but they should be encouraged to get involved, because at the end of the day, when after the district's done with them, after 12th grade and they go on, yeah, we got to live with these kids for the rest of our life. So, no, you just want to raise them with your morals and values and have some input on what they're being taught, I guess.
Awesome. All right, well, those are all the questions that we have for you.
Okay.
So you can step down, and will Renee go over and get the next, or did she already? Okay, awesome.
Want me to leave?
You are welcome to stay if you would like to.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Should have brought a couple pens.
I know, right? I have some spares if you need them.
Good evening.
Hello, Mr. Horst. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We appreciate you being here, and we appreciate your interest. Before we get started with the interview questions, I just want to ask you to please confirm that you are a Hartland School District resident and a registered voter.
Yes to both.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. All right, Mr. Keller?
Welcome, Mr. Horst. If you could please describe your current or recent involvement with the Hartland School District.
Current, recent, probably more specific. My youngest son is going to be a sophomore in college, so I have 3 graduates, class of 19, class of 21, and class of 24. And so during that time, the last 8 years or so, I was heavily involved in the music program at the high school. I was the treasurer for 8 years for the Band Boosters organization. All 3 of my children kind of really loved band and participated all 4 years at the high school. And so that consumed most of my recent time. When they were younger, I was in HIA and coached and did all those sorts of things. But most recently, in the last decade, it's been band. I was the band dad, I guess one would say. At least I fancied myself that.
As a potential board candidate, please explain why you are seeking this seat now and describe what you see as your role if you are chosen as a Board of Education member.
So repeat the first part, if you would, please.
For
And
sure.
I'm looking at Mr. Hughes, but I know that's not right. So it's
Yeah,
Mr. Campbell.
right.
Yeah, so thank you.
First part, basically, why are you seeking this seat now?
Yeah. So with my son now off to college and a year under his belt, you know, my wife and I talked about, we've got a little bit of time on our hands to do some other things. And I wanted to be able to give back in some way. The Hartland District has really, and the environment, the community, really benefited my family immensely. I've got 3 wonderful graduates that are off doing wonderful things. And the whole phrase of to whom much is given, much is expected. And I feel like the community has given a lot to the Horst family. And so in some small way, I hope to be able to give back in that way. I think my education, my career choices, my involvement in the school up to this point have helped equip me to maybe help contribute. And maybe the second part of your question of what would I help to do there. I have a background in firstly designing laboratories and then helping Ford Motor Company run them and operate them. And the last 15 years help supervise teams that do that. So I'd like to think I have some unique talents and skills related to team design and operations management and dealing with unions with our UAW partners, dealing with PhDs in laboratory design and engineers and automotive testing, and all of the things that are required to deliver good test results and good research and hopefully next generation technology for Ford Motor Company. So I'd like to think I can bring those skills into a new environment, help the board, help set policy, be a sounding board for administration in those areas where I feel I can contribute.
Good evening, Mr. Horst. Can you tell us about a time when you had to support an unpopular decision or describe a time when you took a principled stance that placed you in the minority?
Yeah, they're a difficult situation that I think I can comment on. I served as secretary to my church board, happened to be Shepherd Lakes Lutheran Church in the vicinity. And we unfortunately, it was uncovered that our senior pastor was misappropriating funds. And as a member of that board, and being in a Christian environment and talking about forgiveness and talking about things of that nature, initially I was a bit of in the minority when, yes, we can forgive in a Christian sense, but there are also civil and criminal things at play. And so that was a difficult stance to take within a congregation of fellow believers and trying to help that board navigate how do we address that tragic situation, for lack of a better term, and how do we navigate that to keep the church together, keep us focused on what is most important for that body, that community, while still making sure that that wrongdoing was held accountable in the eyes of criminal proceedings. And so that was that whole 2-year ordeal was difficult and helped build consensus within that board and within the community of that church community. And unfortunately, there was prison time involved and things of that nature for the senior pastor. But in the end, I think the church is healed, and here we are several years later and in a much better position.
Hello, Mr. Horst.
Greetings.
If you were to be appointed, how would you help to build the team dynamic between the board, administrators, teachers, staff? How would you go about that?
Listen. It would be kind of a watchword for me. I'm a quiet person by nature. I like to gather data. I'm an engineer by training, as you probably have seen in my resume. And so I like to think that I'm data-driven. I gather data and then listen, and then in a collaborative way with other stakeholders that have the ability to make decisions, then use that data, use the information that I've listened to then come to an agreement. In the automotive world, we're highly metric-driven. You're making money. Are you developing things? Are you bringing things to market? And so gathering data to help one make decisions that then meet those metrics is really at the heart of what I as my thought process of building a community. I mentioned our union partners, in terms of listening to their needs. We may not always agree with our union partners, but we work with them. We have national and local contracts. And so we listen, we gather data, and then we find a solution that works as best as possible for all of the stakeholders in this scenario.
Thank you. Is there a recent board decision that you did not agree with? And if so, how would you have voted and why?
That's a great question. A recent board decision that I would have to disagree with. I can't think of one. The only one that I can think of is, and this dates it a little bit, when it came to the most recent bond issue, at, say, the 90% mark, I liked where the funding went to. There were probably differences of opinions in terms of personally where I would have wanted some of the funding to go to. Very much supported the vast majority of it. And I think the administration mostly got it right. How would I have voted differently? That's a little bit harder to say because obviously you're presented as a board kind of here's the plan, and you vote it up or you vote it down. I certainly would have supported the bond issue, and I voted for it. And I supported at the 90% mark, I guess, thinking about some of the details. I may have had some differences of opinion, but again, that probably is neither. That's not probably a great answer to your question, but that's the one thing that I can think of.
If you were appointed, what do you think the top 3 priorities of the board should be?
So financial stability, number one. Number two, staff and board policy continuity to the extent that that can be done in an ever-changing world. Stability, both financially and in personnel matters, helps bring people as applicants. They want a stable environment to work within. I think parents want a stable environment for their children to learn in. So you asked for three. So stability financially, stability in staffing and personnel, and then good curriculum development as the board is responsible for that ultimately. I think that's really the heart of where the board is in terms of making sure that that is in place, policy, financial, personnel, so that the administration can then effectively carry out what the board is asking it to do.
In what ways do your online and other public actions support the image of the district?
Online, limited. I have a LinkedIn account because a former boss of mine made me get one. And other than that, I think I have a Facebook account, and I got it 10 years ago because my kids were in the band, and that was a way to listen to them. But so other than that, I don't have a social media presence. Again, I'm a quiet person. I tend to be private by nature. But in terms of my physical outward in person, I felt I represented the boosters well when I was with the band and talking to the hundreds of families that had band students, go to all of the athletic events and to watch and enjoy, and one behaves oneself when doing those things. And yes, cheer for Hartland, but make sure that you're doing it in a responsible manner. Attending parades, being present at all of those things. I think that's kind of part of the community that draws people to Hartland is just the presence of all of those different things, whether it's athletic or music or drama. That's how I kind of lived, a little bit through my children, admittedly, in terms of all of the band performances, but also the drama things that were fantastic and the athletic events that they didn't participate in, but were fun to go to and have been fun to go to.
Mr. Horst, please describe in detail what you feel is the proper role that parents should play in shaping policy and curriculum for a school district.
Shaping policy. So a couple different ways. One is to vote for who they want to be on the board. It is ultimately the board's responsibility to shape the policy that the administration is going to carry out. I'm a huge believer in parental involvement, which is a little bit of a corollary to your question, Mr. Gorgolewski. And it's not a policy part necessarily, but advocating for things, talking to board members about what they feel is important. I guess one could call that advocacy. A individual parent wanting to write policy and saying this is how it must be. That's one input. It's a data input from the public. It is up to the board to take that, make sure it jives with the various laws that govern that particular thing. And so advocacy at a lower level perhaps, and maybe this is deviating a little bit from your question, engaging with the teachers of their children to ensure that they understand what the teachers have to do relative to curricula, relative to conflict resolution, or anything that a policy might govern, and making sure that the parent is firstly engaged with the teacher, and if necessary, an assistant principal or a counselor or another staff member, and ultimately it could go to the senior administration, I suppose. That's not really maybe the heart of your question in terms of developing policy, but in terms of what do they want to see their district do relative to their own children. I guess this may be a different way that I'm choosing to maybe answer your question, is absolutely be with their children, go to their children's events, meet with teachers, engage with teachers to the extent that maybe that doesn't work for all families all of the time. There's then the backstopping and so on. I guess I'm repeating myself, but I see from a parental engagement perspective, that's where the rubber meets the road for me.
Good.
Okay, that was the last question. So you are welcome to stay if you would like to watch the other interviews, or you are free to go.
Thank you so
Whichever.
much. I
Thank you
appreciate
so
the
much for your
opportunity.
time.
Okay.
Hello, Ms. Custodio. Thank you for joining us and for your interest. Before we get started with the interview questions, I just want to ask you to confirm, are you a resident of Hartland Schools, and are you a registered voter?
I am a resident of Hartland Schools as well as a registered voter.
Awesome, thank you. Mr. Keller?
Hi, Ms. Custodio. Welcome. If you could please describe your current or recent involvement with the Hartland School District?
Yes, so when my children started in the district, I started at the elementary level with motor moms and helping with some PTO. Moving up into the high school as my schedule allowed, I got more involved and was on the Hartland High School football board, and then on the cheer board, and then recently took over doing the gold out for the district.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, good evening. As a potential board candidate, please explain why you are seeking this seat now and describe what you see as your role if you're chosen as a Board of Education member.
So I'm seeking this position now because I have two children, one of which graduated last year, and I have a daughter coming up. Hartland Schools has done a lot for my family, and my children have flourished. So I would like to give back. I do other things within the community, but this is another layer of that involvement that I can have in giving back to the community that has given so much to my children and my family. I would see my role as being able to continue to support the district at all levels and being able to be a voice as well.
Good evening. Can you tell us about a time when you had to support an unpopular decision or describe a time when you took a principled stance that put you in the minority?
Yes, so I think you guys especially know anytime you serve in a position, there's always going to be people who disagree. And I think that's where your morals and your values have to come into play. I had a situation where on the football board there were some discrepancies, and I think it's important to always listen to everybody's views. I think that is extremely important, but I think it's also important to always lead with what is right and follow what you know is ethically correct. So we had a situation, obviously not going to go into depth on that, but there was a situation that had a lot of people divided, and I had us all get together and have a discussion. It didn't mean that everyone was going to agree, but at least everybody was going to hear everybody's stance. So definitely been in that position. I will add to that too, that I think communication is key in all of these situations. I think a lot of the problems that we have can be solved or at least understood by adequate communication.
Hello.
Hello.
If you were to be appointed, how would you help to build the team dynamic between the board and the administrators, teachers, and staff?
That's a great question. I think it's important that we use the word team, as you said. We're all stakeholders in it for the right reason of doing what is best for students, what's best for the community, and what is best for students. Students should be at the forefront of that. So I think working together collaboratively, listening and communicating with all stakeholders, parents included, is extremely important.
Thank you. Is there a recent board decision that you did not agree with? And if so, how would you have voted and why?
So there are some, but I think it's being in the public is one way. You don't necessarily have all the information in front of you. So I think it's easy to disagree on certain stances, but we don't necessarily have all the information. Sometimes there might be budget decisions that are made, but we don't necessarily have all the same information. Or there might be conversations that you guys have had with Mr. Hughes or Mr. Minsker about curriculum that we may not have. So I think each situation is on a case-by-case basis.
Thank you.
Sorry, I was finishing my notes there. Apologies. If you were appointed, what do you think the top 3 priorities of the board should be?
I think safety. I think student and teacher retention. We need to keep our students, keep the district a place that students want to come to for school of choice. We need to keep our teachers and support staff. And I think opportunities for students. Not all students have the same things that drive them. Some students, it might be sports. Some students, it might be robotics. Some students, it might be some of the LESA programs like aviation. And I think it's really digging into all of those and making sure there's ample opportunities for all students.
In what ways do your online and other public actions support the image of the district?
Online, I would definitely say that I follow as many of the different Hartland pages as I can. Sometimes it's easier to find than others, trying to be involved and supportive. Additionally, going to other events, other sporting events, making sure that, again, it's not just something that's said, but something that's lived, supporting all students. And I think being an advocate and a supporter of what is happening in the district.
Okay, one last question. Please describe what you feel is the proper role that parents should play in shaping policy and curriculum for a school district.
So I think that parents are definitely stakeholders. Parents are the first educators at home. I do think that in education, coming from an education background myself, it is extremely important that all decisions are well-rounded decisions, ensuring that they are meeting the curriculum, meeting the state standards, making sure that we're making choices that are best for teachers in the classroom, students. And I think that there is a parent voice that's important, but parents can't be the only driving decision.
Okay, that's all the questions that we have for you. You are welcome to stay and watch the rest of the interviews, or you're free to go, as you wish.
Thank you guys so very much.
Thank
Have a
you
good
so
day.
much.
Thank you.
Hello, Dr. Austin. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
We
Thank you
appreci-
for having me. Thanks for taking the time out for this special meeting. I know it's a lot of work. I appreciate it.
Thank you, and thanks for your interest. Before we start with the interview questions, I just want you to please confirm you're a resident of Hartland School District
I am.
and a registered voter.
I am.
Perfect. All right, Mr. Keller?
Hello, Dr. Austin. If you could, please describe your current or recent involvement with the Hartland School District.
Okay. Well, first and foremost, I am a graduate of Hartland Consolidated Schools a long time ago. So I am a product of the school system here, as are my two brothers. We moved from Detroit Public Schools to Hartland, so that was quite a change. A lot of differences and diversity, as well as trying to integrate with such a different type of area compared to the urban area. Was more rural at the time. Additionally, I have two sons. One graduated in 2023, the other graduated just this year. In addition, we also had a Hartland graduate in the year 2024. He was a Swedish foreign exchange student that we hosted for the year. So I've attended the last 3 graduations for Hartland Consolidated Schools. I've done a lot of work with Hartland Consolidated. I've interacted with many of you on the board, as well as with some of the teachers and parents of this district, ensuring that certain initiatives were carried out. One of the biggest things that I experienced through Hartland Schools myself is that it gave me an opportunity that I probably wouldn't have had we not moved to this district. It's a wonderful school district. We turn out amazing students, and I really like the educational offerings that Hartland has because it appeals to multiple learners. My brother, being a special ed student here at Hartland, had a very different education experience, but he was able to achieve great success in his life after graduating from Hartland. My other brother dropped out of Hartland High School, and he was able to achieve his GED, and he has achieved great success in his life. My 2 boys are not school people. They do not enjoy academics, but they were able to experience some amazing classes. As a matter of fact, my younger son just had his graduation party on Saturday, and he received a lot of money. And he's like, I wish I had Mr. Oak's class right now so I could learn how to invest this money, or he could tell me and give me advice on how I'm going to invest it. And both of my kids, because of some of those offerings, have already started their own investment accounts. And I just think that's really a testament to appealing to multiple learners and to the diverse learning needs of all of our student population. The other thing I truly appreciate about Hartland Consolidated, being a professor at a community college, is that Hartland doesn't just appeal to the academics, which I think is very necessary. We have to have basic academics, but they appeal to multiple pathways after high school, whether it be the military, the trade schools, community college, especially with the new initiatives in Michigan that's supporting parents so they don't have to provide all of the funding up front. Even though we don't have our own community college, parents will get reduced tuition rates at community colleges, and Hartland does a really good job of reflecting that at their back-to-school nights and at their planning nights for the seniors. So.
Okay, good evening. As a potential board candidate, please explain why you are seeking this seat now and describe what you see as your role if you are chosen as a Board of Education member.
I feel that I have a really unique perspective to offer to this board and to the community. Not only am I a professor of nursing and work with the community college district, but I also am somebody that works closely with the union that I belong to, and we have to be able to marry the administrative wants and needs with the needs and wants of our biggest commodity, which is our teachers here in Hartland, which attracts a lot of students here. I also have a unique experience with business. I owned and operated my own business, creating iPhone apps for nursing students and sold them all across the world. So I have a huge love for budget and fiscal concerns, and so I would appreciate the opportunity to lend some input on how we can ensure Hartland continues to operate in the green as opposed to the red. I know right now we don't have the state and the federal data yet. I did look over the budget that you guys had put out in the June meeting, or it was actually May. The meeting minutes aren't posted yet for for the last meeting you had. And so I would love an opportunity to be able to offer some insight. I think it's really important that we do blend both the needs of the students, the population of our students, especially with safety and their educational needs. We have to fund for our technology needs because technology is driving our future here in Hartland. And I believe that we need to also make sure that we are respecting and applauding the teachers who are able to offer our students the best education experience. And being a teacher myself, I really value that.
Can you tell us about a time when you had to support an unpopular decision or describe a time when you took a principled stance that put you in the minority?
I've actually had quite of those experiences. Probably the biggest minority position was, and many of you already know this, because I was a staunch advocate for getting our students back in school and for ensuring they were not wearing masks and were not socially isolated. My stance was very unpopular here in Livingston County. Because of that stance, I was persecuted both at a personal and professional level. I withstood that persecution and I fought back, and thankfully I was able to overturn many decisions at the state level where they were trying to persecute people's licenses both medically and in nursing. Because of that stand, I decided I need to get more involved related to health initiatives. One of the biggest things that I think Hartland Consolidated experienced during COVID was the health department was saying some things, the schools were saying another thing, and it didn't seem like there was anyone to point to figure out what the true data was. So rather than now looking 2020, looking hindsight, rather than blaming everybody, because both of my boys suffered greatly through the COVID, and as a matter of fact, that is when their drop in academics occurred. I saw major social issues with both of my boys as a result of that. They were in their 6th and 8th grade years, and it was just terrible for them. And that's why I took such a strong position, because I was advocating for my boys. Because of that, I did go ahead and get involved in the Health Advisory Committee for Livingston County Health Department. I'm now serving on that committee. And our goal is to make sure that if there are any other types of events that happen in the future in Livingston County, that there is clear communication from the Health Advisory Committee, that we can be the go-between and liaison to ensure that the public knows exactly what is happening and what is being recommended and who is driving those recommendations, because it seemed like there was a lot of confusion. My stance was unpopular at the time, but if you look at all the evidence that is out there, my stance was 100% correct, and I stand by that. And I am an avid researcher, and I am well researched on the topics of masks, social distancing, COVID policies, vaccine harms related to the COVID-19 vaccine. And I strongly advocated for my students during that time, and I think a lot of people took offense to that, but it was necessary. I also advocated at my college for all of the employees and for our nursing students to ensure they still were able to have informed consent and able to make their own personal health care decisions.
Good evening, Dr. Austin. I have a question. If you were to be appointed, how would you help build the team dynamic between the board, administrators, teachers, staff?
So I think one of the most important things is we all need to realize we're on the same side. And the side is for the students and our community stakeholders. But the students are our ultimate priority. We have to value everybody's role in ensuring the safety and the education of our students. We cannot do it without teachers. We cannot do it without administration. This board, as you see it sit before me, is what helps reflect the wants and needs of the community stakeholders. We have to balance all of those things. We can't just say administration is right or teaching is right. As a current department representative for my nursing department, I oftentimes have to sit in meetings with administration, with union reps, with teachers, and we have to negotiate to make sure that at the end of the day, the students are the ones that win ultimately, because it's not about us, it's about them. I strongly believe that with the right approach and with good, consistent discussion, we can come to an agreement that will meet everybody's needs. And I would welcome that opportunity. I'm doing great things at my college right now. I'm advocating for some of our faculty. I'm advocating for our department to get a program director, a position that has never been there but is necessary as we've increased enrollment in our nursing department by well over 110 students every year. I'm advocating through both the union and the administration, and I'm receiving a lot of support from both of those entities because ultimately it's about, at the end of the day, what are we doing for our students and are we able to do it consistently and with quality, or are we not? And we have to come to agreements that sometimes are hard, especially when you're asking for more money or more FTEs or more things that we know are going to put a constraint on the budget. So.
Is there a recent board decision that you did not agree with? And if so, how would you have voted and why?
Let's see. There have been some for sure. Let me think of one in particular. Obviously, during the COVID era, I had a lot of differences with the board. And again, I was in the minority, and the board at that time was definitely voting against the things that I brought up. One of the biggest things that I did have a problem with, and I felt like I portrayed it well enough, was, when the superintendent encouraged students to get the COVID-19 vaccine so they didn't have to wear a mask in school. The very premise to recommend or not recommend a vaccine falls upon an advanced healthcare provider. And I strongly advocated for that not to be done because we were incentivizing getting the COVID-19 vaccine to students who haven't been able to show their face in many months. It was devastating, and I now have students that have graduated that wish they would have never done it, but they did it because at the time they felt like they had no other choice to be able to get back to some type of freedom. Unfortunately, that decision was not backed by evidence because we know that even with the COVID-19 vaccine, you can still transmit COVID-19. So regardless, you can't incentivize one group to be able to do something and another group not to be able to do something. It doesn't equal the playing field. I do think that the intent was good. I absolutely think the intent was good, as was most people's intent during that time. But I think we really need to look at evidence before we make rash decisions that do affect our student population, whether it be it affected them then or whether it continues to affect them 5 to 10 years down the road. Evidence is key. We have to have the research to support decisions that we make. We can't just go off on whatever the newest trend is or what everyone's doing. So that would probably be one that really just hurt my heart at the time because I know students were feeling in such a way that they felt like that was the only way they were going to return to some normalcy, and it didn't end up sitting right with me, and I spoke on that. So.
If you were appointed, what do you think the top 3 priorities of the board should be?
The top 3 priorities, safety is a priority. We already know that safety across the nation is something that we have to drive home with our schools. The others is ensuring that we have competitive programs. I loved in 2024 how we received accolades for our AP classes and our programs here at Hartland Consolidated. Just this last year, we received really great scores as well from national databases. I think Hartland is positioned very well. We're well known in the state of Michigan. We have a very competitive school district, and it drives people to want to move here. I know that the house that is right next 2 doors down from me sold in 1 day. And that's happening all over Hartland because A, we have fantastic schools, B, we have a fantastic community. I want to keep it that way. So safety, academics, and the quality of our educational offerings are imperative to continue to motivate people to want to live here in Hartland.
In what ways do your online and other public actions support the image of the district?
I really try not to have an online image anymore. I actually kind of deleted most of my stuff except for just close friends. The reason being is because number one, it gets you nowhere, right? We realize that online it's just a circle of divisiveness, and I don't feel that that's helpful. I prefer to do things in the background where you have interactions that can actually affect change. We live in an online world. I strongly caution my students to delete all their online profiles before they go apply for a job, because you shouldn't really know the positions of certain things with individuals that are seeking out job opportunities or a board position. So I feel like I'm supportive of Hartland Consolidated Schools. I've had both boys go through the soccer program here at Hartland Consolidated. I would think that my online persona would be positive for Hartland. I have not had an online persona per se that is public in probably about 4 years. So I can't say definitively, but it was a long time ago. And again, it was because I faced a lot of community persecution. So.
And lastly, Holly, please describe what you feel is the proper role that parents should play in shaping both policy and curriculum for a school district.
So ultimately, when you're dealing with a K through 12 minor child, the parents have to be involved. It is very different when they get to the college level. And the college level, I have to talk directly to my students. I'm not allowed to talk to parents. As a matter of fact, I received a phone call from a parent today, and I'm like, I can't reach back out to you. That's not appropriate. They're adults. When we have a child learner, we have to make sure the parents are involved in their education. We have to make sure that they're involved in key decisions that affect their child. It's extremely important because the support that you're going to get for that child comes from home first. And then we continue to build upon those foundations and those building blocks at the school level. But we have to have teachers interacting with parents, parents interacting with teachers. Curriculum needs to be shaped by the experts in that curricula. There's no way a parent could come into my nursing program and design a curriculum for one of my classes. So that would probably be beyond the scope of what we would consider for that parent interaction. But what is not beyond their scope is getting feedback from the parent. What worked well for your child this year? What didn't work well? What would you like from the teacher or from the school district? How can the board support not only the teachers in being able to provide what their expertise is, because that is the true experts, right? But also supporting the families and making sure that there's transparency between the two. For the most part, I would say the curriculum has been very favorable. In the few times that I've had incidences, one in particular, unfortunately, it was a big deal, and it had been going on in Hartland for over 10 years. But it wasn't until myself and other parents recognized it that it got brought to the forefront. We have to listen to our community stakeholders to fix those things that may not necessarily be safe or good for our children. Now, that doesn't mean that Hartland didn't respond, because they did. As a matter of fact, I worked with the board. I've talked with the board. I worked with Mr. Minsker. I worked with Kate Gregory, and we did come to some good resolutions for that particular situation, but not without first bringing it here and making sure that we were heard. And I think it's important, again, that we listen to parents, because even the teachers who were involved in the incident, I don't really think they recognized what types of materials the students were reading, because it had been so long maybe since they had read it, or they read it when they were in college. And so you need everybody to speak up when there's something wrong so that we can correct those wrongs. So in this particular incident, it was a very not appropriate book that was part of the required readings for an English class. And when you highlighted all the examples, I mean, it's embarrassing for you to listen to it, then why are our children reading it? So, but it was resolved.
Okay, that was our last question. So thank you very much for participating. You are welcome to stay and listen to the other interviews, or you are free to go.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
Hello, Mr. Curtis. Welcome.
Thank you.
Before we get started with the questions, I would just like to ask you to please verify that you are a resident of Hartland Community School District.
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Awesome. And that you're a registered voter.
I am.
Awesome. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Curtis. Could you please describe your current or recent involvement with the Hartland School District?
So as recently as 4 years ago, my youngest daughter was here. I graduated 3 daughters from Hartland from kindergarten through 12. They graduated, the last one was 4 years ago, and then 12 years before that was the first one. So short of that, that's been my experience. My wife was a gymnastics coach for the Hartland Academy for many, many years. Short of that, there's nothing else.
Thank you. Good evening.
Hello.
As a potential board candidate, please explain why you are seeking this seat now and describe what you see as your role if you are chosen as a Board of Education member.
Okay. So this came to me in a rather strange way. Again, I told you I have 3 daughters that have grown and gone on to be very successful women. As much as I like to take credit for me, I recognize that I had this much of a part of the slice of their life, and the school had a big part of it. I wish I could take the credit. The credit is not only mine, certainly their mother as well, but I have to give credit to the community. What happened was, I heard on WHMI a discussion about there being a seat open for a temporary position. And while I've had no interest, nor I can promise you I've never been to a board meeting, I've never been interested in it. I've been to different types of meetings, but not specifically school board meetings. I was compelled. How could I give back? I've been a member of the community. I've built a business here. I've spent the last 25 years in business here. Having many of the kids that have gone through the school system work for me through the years, and that's kind of what compelled me to put my bid in. Nothing more than that, other than here's an opportunity to maybe give back to a community that has given quite a bit to me, especially seeing it through my children.
Thank you for coming, Mr. Curtis. Can you tell us about a time when you had to support an unpopular decision, or describe a time when you took a principled stance that placed you in the minority?
So I'm a business owner that, it's a construction-based business, backyard work. And we took a very different approach at a really young age as to let's not do what other people do. And it's a very unpopular way. If you look at business today, you look at the business schools, you look at any book you read, it's about scale, more, bigger, be more that you can be, take on more as you can take. And we took the very opposite approach. We said, let's turn away 95% of the phone calls that we get and only do the things that we really, really love to do. The challenge with that is when a customer who has the finances to do anything that you could want to do for them, having to tell them no is a very unpopular place to be. And I do that all the time. So I end up in this minority role of I'm going to say no to the people that are so used to everyone saying yes to them. It's put me in a really interesting position to understand that the value of what I bring is only to the people that I want to bring it to, as opposed to selling it to everyone. And I would say that's probably more than anything else, other than having to make business decisions for all of my adult life. Having to say no when the opportunity to say yes is teed up for you and they're begging for you to do business with them and you say no, that puts you in a really minority position. And I know that feeling pretty well.
Hello, Mr. Curtis. If you were to be appointed, how would you help to build the team dynamic between the board, administrators, teaching staff, other personnel?
So I don't know how all of this works, but I know how to manage people and I know how to put teams of people together. with what I've done over the last 35 years of my career is all about finding the right people for the right seat, doing the right job because they love to do the job, not because they have to. One thing that we did, again, referring back to the company, is we never put someone in a position just because we needed to fill it. If they didn't love what they were doing, they didn't belong in that position because they're not going to give everything that they had to give. In our case, we always made sure right butt in the right seat for the right reason. And that's kind of part of what I think I could bring to the team.
Thank you. Is there a recent school board decision that you did not agree with? And if so, how would you have voted and why?
Again, new to this. There's not a decision that I would say I disagree with. I have to say, though, over the course of 25 years in the community, something's gone right in my life with what's been done in this room, because my girls are testament to the fact that good decisions were being made, and they've gone on to lead really successful, amazing, beautiful. They were all in the tops of their classes. One was a valedictorian. All of those accolades. Those aren't credits that I give myself. Those go to you guys who have made the decisions to help make the school be what it is. So I don't have a good answer for that because I don't know. Mm-hmm.
If you were appointed, what do you think the top 3 priorities of the board should be?
I would think quality education. And when I say quality education, it's more than book learning. I think education is a multifaceted thing. It's about every child learns in a different way, focusing on different ways to help kids find their way through and become successful adults. That's number one. Secondly would probably be athletics, having good programs. And the reason I think that good programs in athletics matter is I think, number one, a child, and I just can use my daughters as examples, as gymnasts. They learned poise and grace and presence, but they also learned how to be a team and yet individual. Most athletics require both a team element but also a personal element. I watch my girls compete against their own teammates and yet cheer their own teammates on as their own teammate was beating them in whatever that endeavor they were doing. And that brings a unique thing to a child's mind, is that I compete to win, but if I don't win, I'm happy for the person next to me who's a teammate who won. And that's why I think athletics are important. It creates a team, but also creates an individuality. Third thing, I think, which there's a segment of people that are involved obviously in athletics, but then there's a huge member of the community of kids that don't fit into that category. And the third thing to me would probably be after-school programs of some type, because a mind that is bored or not challenged or not being tasked to do something is a mind that gets into all kinds of trouble. You know, you just give a kid a reason to be bored and they're going to find all kinds of stuff that none of us as parents want to see them find. So extracurricular activity is a huge part of keeping them engaged in learning, growing, changing, and becoming a better human being.
In what ways do your online and other public actions support the image of the district?
So while I haven't specifically done anything Hartland related other than having hired an awful lot of kids that came through the schools to work for me, our online presence is massive. There's probably 5,000 videos of me online talking about my philosophical life experience, my business experience, and the business itself. And all of those would support a good community. So while they haven't been focused on Hartland per se, they would show a human being that cares about his community, cares about the people around him, and cares about the people that are surrounding him. So while it's not specific to Hartland, it absolutely shows the character of the person that stands in front of you.
Mr. Curtis, one last question. Please describe what you feel is the proper role that parents should play in shaping both policy and curriculum for the district?
So I mentioned earlier that I think it's important that there's multiple facets of learning, that we don't just learn through a book, that we have all of these ways, whether it's tactile learning, visual learning, all of those things. Our parents know their children. If the parent pays attention, okay, granted, not all parents pay attention to how their children's act and are, but if we learn the baseline of a child and how they act, we can understand how to educate them. And I think the parent is the first place to be able to share that with educators, is here's how little Billy learns. Here's how my daughter learns. Here's the things that would help her get through whatever this challenge they're having. So I think the parent's role is really important. Do I think it's the only thing? No, but I think that we should take a parent's perspective and at least look at it. Because again, every parent thinks their child's perfect. I get that. And that's not where we're going. We realize, though, that every parent has a little bit of a blinder on, but a parent could help us shape decisions to guide groups of people in the right direction, groups of kids in the right direction.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was the last question. You're welcome to stay if you'd like to listen to the other interviews, or you're free to go. Thank
Awesome.
you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Hi, Mr. Wallace. Welcome.
Thank you.
We're happy to have you here. Thanks for your interest. Before we get started with the questions, I just would like to ask you to confirm, are you a resident of Hartland School District?
Yes.
And are you a registered voter?
Yes.
Awesome. All right, Mr. Keller.
Welcome, Mr. Wallace. Could you please describe your current or recent involvement with the Hartland School District?
Yeah, so I have two kids in Hartland schools, kindergartner at Village and second grader at Village. They're actually being homeschooled right now as we are on a 7-month trip across the country. My wife is also a teacher in Hartland Consolidated Schools at Ore Creek. She teaches 7th grade math. And Mr. Hughes and Ms. Gregory were kind enough to grant her a leave of absence for this semester so we could travel around with our kids while they're at the age where they don't mind being with us to see some things that they're learning about in school.
Good evening. As a potential board candidate, please explain why you are seeking this seat now and describe what you see as your role if you are chosen as a Board of Education member.
So the timing seems to fit. Actually, it's probably a little bit sooner, with the vacancy than waiting for the December 2026 election. Up until December of 2024, I worked full-time in the automotive industry. And part of the reason to do this trip was for me to leave my job so we can travel, and then when we come back, be more of a member in the community, doing things, with the kids, field trips, coaching, being able to spend more time doing those kind of things. So that's kind of why the timing. And as a board member, part of the role is to be a liaison between the community and the school district, to make sure that the voices of this community are being heard. Another thing is checks and balances to the school district, that policies are being followed, policies are being implemented. We're staying up to date with any new government regulations, things like that stay in compliance, right? Also, really to be a positive figure in the community, being somebody that to look up to, for people to look up to in the community. So I think those are some key values of what the board is here to do.
Good evening. Can you tell us about a time when you had to support an unpopular decision, or describe a time when you took a principled stance that placed you in the minority?
Yeah, so when I was the general manager of an automotive facility a number of years ago, it was during COVID time, and we all lived through that, and there's a lot of policies that went through that. The vast majority of our population, our employees, weren't in support of, but it was our company mandate that we had to follow. And as a general manager of that company and working, I had to enforce those policies, which went against those opinions of some of my workers. And it was really working with them and communicating with them on why the policies are there, and that we really do have the best interests of the employees, and let's make sure that their voices are heard, and what can we do to maybe come to a compromise? How do we make this work for everyone? So that was a really trying time to be in charge of a facility.
Good evening, Mr. Wallace. If you were to be appointed, how would you help to build the team dynamic between the board, administrators, teachers, staff?
Biggest thing is communication and visibility. Being a presence, being open, listening, and not just hearing, but listening and taking action items. And how do we take the concerns that we hear from community members or the staff or administration, and how do we remedy those through problem solving? There might not be a perfect solution, but how we come to the best agreement that we can as a team, with collaboration, working together, through problem solving exercises. Sometimes you got to, chew up a couple of, I don't say bad ideas, but maybe not the best ideas, and take pieces of different ones to come up with a good solution. And it takes a full team effort to get everyone's input, because that's how you build that road to a successful policy and partnership.
Is there a recent board decision that you did not agree with? And if so, how would you have voted and why?
The one that comes to mind is the DOJ contract. And the reason I don't necessarily support it is I've dealt with government entities, with Eagle and the EPA, and I think Mr. Keller, you had brought up the point of we weren't given a clear goal. Like, you have to get to this level to get out of surveillance. It was kind of wishy-washy, and we don't know when we're going to end. And then on top of that, you need to work with this third party. We can't self-monitor. We can't pick our own third party, right? I mean, if we want to work, if they say we got to work with a third party, fine. Well, let us research and quote out and find the third party that works best for us, right? I think ultimately we had to do something with the DOJ for them to, keep moving forward and stay in good faith with them. But I think we could have asked more questions and found maybe a solution that worked a little bit better for us.
Okay, if you were appointed, what do you think the top 3 priorities of the board should be?
I think school and student safety, keeping our community safe, keeping the students safe. And I mean, that can look a number of ways, resource officers, building security, parking lot, routing traffic through parking lots, bus stop safety. There's a lot of aspects, right, that we need to look at, have policies for, and understand, what's going on in the community. And that's where the community members are a benefit to the board, because you guys aren't at every bus stop. You guys aren't at every school during drop-off time. You need those eyes and ears so we can come up with solutions. The second thing is, curriculum. Let's have a good curriculum that prepares our students for success in the real world. That they are well-rounded, that they know, their multiplication tables, and they know, punctuation, and they know, the presidents of the United States and the 50 capitals of every state. Make sure that they know these things at every level. So when they build to the next level, to the next level, to the next level, they have the right building blocks. I think we sometimes have gaps where we may move students along that don't have those right building blocks, and you get further and further holes. It's like a Tetris game, right? You have more holes down below, and then you get more and more holes up top, and now you might have a problem with that student later on being prepared, right? So curriculum is the second pillar. And I think, the banner right there, reason, respect, responsibility, is really push that message, you know, that you know, we're a part of a community, and this community is one of the best ones. I mean, part of the travels that we've done, we've seen a lot of small towns, and we compare everything to Hartland, and that's why we live here. That's why I've lived here my whole life. That's why we came back. We raised our family here, because those 3 R's mean something. They've been part of our life for 40 years, and they should be continued.
In what ways do your online and other public actions support the image of the district?
I try not to have much social media presence. One, because I really don't understand it all that well, and two, as a board member, my opinions might not be the view of the entire board or the community that I'm supporting. So I mean, this current role is an elected role, but typically it would be elected role as an elected official. You support the voice of the community, not just my personal voice. So I try to not be on social media that much. I think it's easy to sit behind a keyboard and type thoughts that might not be the best message to portray to a community, or it might be in the heat of emotion and you can't take it back. Once it's out there, you can't take it back. You know, there's a lot of things that we've said in arguments that you wish you could take back. Well, that's not in writing. It's not on a computer screen. So, you know, it's a little bit easier to take back. Once it's in social media, it's there. So, you know, you really have to be conscious of what you're putting out there, because it is a reflection of the board, the community, Hartland schools, my kids, my family, all that.
Sorry, Mr. Wallace, I've got so many notes to take.
Yeah, no problem.
Last question. Please describe what you feel is the proper role that parents should play in shaping policy and curriculum for a district.
That's a tough question. Parents, obviously, their primary role is raising their children, right? They're their children. But at the same time, they're not trained educators, right? They didn't go to, you know, years of school and student teaching to be educators and understanding how to teach kids and what is required in a curriculum. Parents might not be as up to date on what the government policies are that what you have to teach kids, what are on the standardized testing. So there might be some gap, but I think parents should be at a minimum informed of what's going on. Definitely have curriculum guides, and these are what's going to be taught right off the bat. You know, in college, you know, you got your syllabus on day one. This is what basically you had your whole semester laid out. I think that is helpful, that they can see it up front, that they're not blindsided in November of something that, you know, that their students are doing the next day or they did that day. You know, they know, hey, in 3 months we're going to talk about this. Hey, we might have a problem with this. Let's address it. So I think further visibility on what's in the curriculum is important. And I think, you know, part of the board in the last few months is the opt-in versus opt-out. And it's hard to know what curriculum ideas even should be up for opt-in or opt-out. I mean, you don't want to get carried away and have to opt into every multiplication test or every spelling test, right? You know, it's hard to get, or it'd be easy to get carried away, but, you know, the idea of opting into some of these more controversial topics gives more voice to the parents, as long as it doesn't get out of control. There are things that the state says you have to teach, and I think it's important that parents are aware of this isn't necessarily a school board decision. This is a state of Michigan decision that we have to follow. But being clear, hey, this is a law. You can look it up. You know, if you have a problem with it, this is how you would address that. Okay, but that goes back to the communication and clarity between the school board and the teachers and administration and the parents.
Awesome, thank you. That was your last question.
That's it?
So yes, that was it. That was it. So thank you so much for participating, and thank you for your patience, as
All right.
you were the last one on the list. So thank you very much. All right, moving on to the agenda, item 3A, future meetings, July 1st, Tuesday, 6:30 PM here, special meeting for interviews, for the vote to appoint. July 21st is our organizational meeting, also 6:30 PM here in the boardroom. Item 3B, any informational items anyone would like to share? Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you.